All right, welcome back, everybody. You are back at the Web3 game development live stream. I am John Radoff. Don't be misled by the fact that I'm sitting in a corner of the screen, which apparently is not going to change at any point today. StreamYard, thank you. You had one job, that's controlling our cameras on the internet. You couldn't do it today. So what can you do? We are going to work with what we have. More importantly, we've got Kyler Frisbee here from POG Digital. You're going to meet him in a moment. He is building an amazing game on an amazing IP on the B-Mobile platform, and we're going to talk all about what they're doing, his journey through Web3, the many chains he's had experience with, the game design, the ideas, the future of Web3. We're going to get to all of that. We're going to talk to Kyler about his background, like what brought him to all of this. And I am just going to be here in the corner doing what we at B-Mobile love to do, which is supporting, shepherding, kind of being in the background, so to speak. Today, I guess I'm not in the background. I'm off to the side. And it's fine. I'm happy to be here. But StreamYard, fix your shit. Okay? All right. Kyler, let's meet you here. Kyler,
yeah.
Introduce yourself first. Like, what did you do before this crazy Web3 game development journey?
You know, I was, let's go way back. I was a pro snowboarder before I got into business. Grew up here in Montana, and then
everyone ends up in this.
Exactly, professional athletics. But you know, my body takes it. It definitely lets me know I shouldn't be sitting too long. But got into banking and then found Bitcoin when I moved to Seattle. This super smart. He was 19 years old. Computational neuroscience bachelor's degree, going for his master's at UW, and taught me about Bitcoin. So I left banking immediately, went to tech, and ended up doing the stint from like Google, Unity, Rivian, IPOs through a few companies, an acquisition by Apple, and really just wanted to get back into crypto. My big passion has always been decentralization. When I was at the bank, I watched little old ladies get drained by the bank for hundreds of dollars because they had one overdraft fee that they didn't know about, and the bank would take their entire welfare check. And so watched it happen a number of times. People left with zero money, negative balances to survive for a month. And it was heartbreaking. And I would just refund fees until they took the ability away. But I found Bitcoin and saw the ability to transfer money without an intermediary, the ability to really control your finances and to not be at risk of somebody stealing or, manipulating your funds. And then I found out about kind of like the ownership of blockchain and so forth, and really fell in love.
Awesome. So I want to talk about all those cool objects that are in your background, and I want to talk about POGs. It's possible that some of our audience does not even know what a POG is, and we're going to have to fix that first to get started. So if you weren't growing up in, I guess, the 90s, we'll forgive you for not knowing this really important part of our culture. But I've also made my own career, a lot of it within licensed IP. So when I was building games, as opposed to building technology to build games, back at Disruptor Beam, Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, Star Trek, Archer. So the world of IP is one that I know well. Kyler, before we get into the game that you're building, let's talk about POGs and also that room. I want to know all about that room behind you there, but share with people what they should know about this market and the IP you're working with.
Absolutely. For those who are 28 to 45, which stats say is 50% of crypto, there's a very good chance you grew up with POGs. It is the number one collectible of our childhood, sold 10 billion collectibles to 200 million people around the world, and partnered with everybody from Marvel and everybody in between, Barbie, Star Wars, the NHL. And it really sparked the collector's itch, I think, for a lot of us, and the gambling degeneracy that would later maybe become a problem for many of us and fuel this entire industry. So what you see behind me is just my endeavor into my childhood, and I'm so lucky to get to collect and play with POGs for a living. But POG was originally from Hawaii. It was a milk cap game. A teacher named Blossom, who I actually know, her granddaughter, brought it to the kids, and even like The Rock and who else? TJ Miller, Katy Perry, Taylor Swift, and all these people collected POGs, right? And so it was a cultural phenomenon. And we're super lucky to use the same brand, partnered with the actual owners of the IP to create a subsidiary. POG is taking shape both on the physical side and on the digital side today. A global playground, as we like to say, but trying to rekindle the nostalgia and that childhood feeling for a lot of adults who maybe stare at screens too long.
Cool. And I should also mention that if you're collecting beamable points, and we've got a leaderboard for that towards the airdrop we're going to be doing pretty soon. We're not announcing the date quite yet, but be on beamable.network if you want to track that. We're going to have a secret word later in this episode. So if you want to collect those beamable points, speaking of collectibles, stay on. I'm not going to give it at 6 minutes and 20 seconds into this episode. No, you're going to actually have to listen to this conversation and hopefully ask a lot of questions too, which brings me to the second point. I used to do this on YouTube and pre-record, and we did all this post-editing and stuff like that. We don't do any of the post-editing anymore. We just go live, and there's a reason why we do it as a live conversation, and it's so that you can ask questions. And I already see some really interesting and even some contrarian questions coming in. We're gonna host your question here. We're gonna post it. You'll get to ask your questions. So keep the questions coming through this conversation. We're happy to talk about it. We're happy to engage with everything that you want to cover. So definitely ask those questions. And in fact, if you want to join live and you've got a camera, we can even do that. Although I don't know, StreamYard, I have no idea what's going on with cameras on StreamYard today. But in theory, we can bring you on live on StreamYard, and Oscar will get you a link into the conversation here. But we love it when the community engages with us. We've got a couple hundred people live and online watching this right now. Often we get many hundreds, even 1,000 plus here watching this. We love that you take an hour of your time to sit down and listen to the conversation. But we love it even more when you be part of the conversation. Please do that. All right. Kyler, let's go back to the game though. So that's POGs. Tell us about the game.
Well, I've got to do my due diligence. If we're streaming on Twitter, I should probably retweet this space. So I'm looking for that link. But yeah, you want to talk about the game? Is that what you said?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, it's been a number of different iterations. When we kind of came together in 2021, we brought my co-founders from, one of them is the head of collectibles at eBay. Another is the head of technologies at Solana Labs. The other one created the network for Shrapnel. And, part of our team helped build Unity for 7 years. And so we had a demo game before we even had a white paper. And we really wanted to create this like classic casual game where people could own their assets and play for keeps the same way we did on a playground, with phenomenal art and our favorite brands. And it's really taken a long time to make that a reality. Web3 is extremely hard to build in, as you know, and we had 3 different development partners before we met you. The Solana team, Matt Sorg, introduced us to you probably 2 years ago after we had been spinning our wheels with a number of different developers, been rugged by developers who promised they could get it done. And, some of them got really close. One of them really got us on like the Solana Saga, and that game still works. And it's a phenomenal experience for hyper casual mobile. But the on-chain mechanics of autonomous transactions, settlement layers, ownership inventories, and all of these things that could be transferred across different experiences was nowhere close to being done. And we'd spent a lot of money. And so the game is just, an experience and an expression of our childhood. And what the Beamable team has done with kind of our foundation is incredible, and we're so excited to share it later this month.
So Kyler, I'd love to go a little bit deeper on this journey you've had through a lot of different blockchains. I mean, strangely enough, it relates almost to Dan Felder's question here, which is, thanks Dan for showing up and asking kind of the contrarian question, which which is sort of leaping to an assumption here that blockchain hasn't yet revolutionized industries the way other revolutionary tech has. The comparison to World of Warcraft. I mean, of course, the first blockchain you're referring to is Bitcoin, which has over $1 trillion market cap, and that's significantly greater than all of Activision's market value as acquired by Microsoft. But so I think that it's probably fair to say it has been a super important financial asset in the financial industry. But maybe it's true to say that Web3, as we kind of move forward to smart contract chains, starting with Ethereum, which is 11 years ago, 10 years ago with Ethereum, has struggled to be a foundational tech for, I don't think we're in a position today to talk about every industry, but let's talk about games, because that's what we can talk about today. It's totally fair to say, Web3 gaming remains a really tiny portion of the overall game industry. And why do you think that is? And tell us a little bit more about, you were one of the few game developers that has gotten through, as you said, several really significant blockchains. And we're not talking about minor chains that were just throwing grant funds around. These were really big big chains, I should say. Solana is where Beamable is launching our deep-in. They're totally relevant. What has and hasn't happened so far in the game industry?
That's a huge question to unpack, and I love it. Each blockchain that we've experienced has had its own utility and its own shortcomings. And I think the issue with Web3 adoption for the games industry has really just been the experiences that have been created. It's very hard if you're going organic Web3, you're going to have a very small pool of users, and you have to be extremely good at what you do, get everybody's attention to break out of that kind of cruft, as Yuga would call it, and to be able to, really escape and be seen as a leader and have high valuations. And it's very few of those businesses that launch that are able to do that. Where on the counter, Web 2, if you just build a phenomenally fun game, people may play, but how long will they play? Is there a hook? And I think the biggest issue with Web 2 games is we see it with Grand Theft Auto. We see it with every new iteration of new experience, a new version of that same game. You have to start over. You don't get to carry any of your progress, any of your equipment, any of your supplies into this new experience, typically. And some of them are getting better at it. But the ability for you to actually own your assets is something I think that all Web 2 users want. The ability for them to be able to sell their experience or to sell their progress, to sell the things that they have found in these games. That's something that is extremely critical for Web 2 users. And I don't know if we have to use the terms, but they will appreciate that, and I think they do appreciate that ownership. But where it's been soured is the hype trains, the influencers that pump and dump, the people who are disingenuous, and the people who are only trying to kind of capitalize on the greater fool theory that some greater fool is going to buy this for more money at a later date. And that has really hurt our credibility as a business, where a lot of us who are trying to provide that ownership experience to games and to gamers so that they can have a continuous journey in their gaming experience and actually create value that they can experience in the real world. It's very hard to decipher. And then you have the biggest games, Axie Infinity and so forth. A lot of these weren't maybe built with the longest term model. We saw it with the NBA Top Shot and so forth, and CryptoKitties, the oversaturation of game mechanics without a burning mechanism, without a way to remove those assets from an ecosystem, will eventually lead to the elimination of all value in your ecosystem. And so, it's a very, very hard thing to tackle, let alone creating the infrastructure for that. And Beamable is the greatest infrastructure layer for Web3 gamers that exists today. Forte, a number of these other businesses have gone after the same problem, but you've been building games for a long time. and you have been building this infrastructure for Web2 gamers, and the fact that you were able to implement smart contracts and autonomous settlements and ownership in true ownership for players was the perfect transition. And now game developers can build the exact same way they build in Web2, but build with that player-owned gaming mentality is what, and that's our digital subsidiary of POG, is player-owned gaming, and what we believe in completely. So it will take time, but there are companies that will do it, and that's why I believe the POG brand is so amazing, because we've already had 35 years, 60 years of a brand development. We already have 250 million people who recognize this brand worldwide, and so we create this gaming experience that people are already used to gambling. They're already used to player-owned ownership. They're already used to collectability. And so all of these user behaviors are already built into our business. And now we get to just build that experience digitally. So I'm very, very excited to see how this is all, adopted as we roll out. But Beamable has given us the greatest shot at capturing that massive layer of users who aren't digital native yet.
So yeah, thanks for the very kind words about Beamable. We try to help.
I'll never stop.
We try to step into the background and just help get people to market with a game that's fun to play by allowing you to focus on the fun. Like I'd love to spend a little bit of time on that, just in the pure game development journey. You point to a lot of the complexity out of Web3, which is, the economies themselves are a complex part of building these kind of games. But what has been important for you as a game developer? Like, what have you learned in that journey that you could pass on to other game developers? Even, let's just start generally, whether or not they're building a Web3 game. What's your advice to anyone who's going to start a studio or a game project today?
And that's so hard. And I just realized I didn't touch on the blockchains that you'd asked. So maybe we go back to that question. Perfect. Game development is extremely hard, and it starts when I was at Unity. The difference between a Unity engineer and a Unity developer is extremely vast. The engineer who's building the shaders and the engine and all of the things that the game developer is utilizing to create that experience, those skill sets are completely different. You might not be a visionary or an imaginative person that's creative and can create games, but you might be the engineering mentality who creates that fundamental underpin that those game developers rely on. And you might have a great idea for a game, but if you don't have the infrastructure, it's never coming to market, and it will never scale. And so that's why we were able to create this hyper casual game within 3 months of going after it, utilizing Fiverr developers, and then to create the very basic mechanics, and then giving it to our Unity engineers who could really make it something. And still, we could never bring that to the blockchain. It took us 3.5 years to get an iteration out, and it took you guys to be able to actually create that. So I think, as hard as it is and as unsexy as it, you have to align your creativity with the infrastructure that you have at your fingertips. You almost have to be a very, very tech-centric person to understand how you could express your game in the communication language or the infrastructure you have. And so, me, as a person who did not code a ton, my experience was in building out the engineering teams, working with VPs and so forth to scale their departments. I'm not an in-depth coder, and I didn't necessarily know how hard all of these pieces were. If you ask my co-founder, Michael, and even Ali, your co-founder, how did how did the experience go? It was me always being like, I love this idea, let's go do this. And then being like, well, dude, you have no idea how we can implement that. That is extremely heavy lifting. And so it's easy to get really frustrated. It's easy to get deflated, because going from a V1 or a V0 prototype all the way to an actual publicly playable game is a much longer experience than maybe a lot of us realize. Flappy Birds and a lot of these other games that were hyper casual could come out quickly because there's not a lot that has to go into it. But But to build a real game that scales like what we've built, it is very hard, and you have to have the right partners, and you have to have the right buy-in from those partners. And if it wasn't for Matt at Solana Labs, we never would have met Beamable. If it wasn't for Beamable, we never would have gotten to where we are now. And what we have now, I really believe, could be the staple for what Web3 gaming is, the Marvel Snap or the Pokemon Go of the Web3 space. So it's not inspiring, it's not sexy probably, but I do believe that, you know, if you have a great idea, then the right people will wrap around that. Your team, we only had an idea, we didn't have the infrastructure, but you guys really saw the vision, you saw what was possible, and you put so much resource behind what we were doing because you saw the vision. And even at points where we weren't able to compensate you for the efforts, you guys donated and dug in so many different aspects, to where we really have something that can I think cross those boundaries that Dan was talking about.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks for those really kind words. I hope that there are some game developers out there who are listening. And if you're building a Web3 game, we can certainly help. If you're building a Web2 game, by the way, we help as well. Most of our customers are Web2. So we're totally blockchain agnostic. If you want to build an on-chain game, we support about 10 chains. So one of the things Kyler experienced with us is, if as you evolve with your game or your studio or your business and you find it's necessary to shift your thinking about what chain you want to be on, we really future-proof that decision in that you can move around without a lot of kind of legacy tech tie-ins that get you stuck on one thing. Same for Web 2, by the way. Like Web 2 is just, you know, you don't have to have a chain. And if you want to change around many of the technologies, we just make that a much more fluid system, login systems, all this stuff that comes up. Dan kind of shot back with, hey, the .com bubble happened too, but it didn't stop the genuine use cases either. Like, this isn't to defend blockchain live stream. It's a game development about Kyler's project. So I think we'll get back in a moment to some of those different chains you worked with and like what you learned along the way. But just one comment, Dan, is like, it's actually it's not at all true. Like there's now trillions of transactions of stable coins, for example, happening on smart contract chains. In fact, the stablecoin transactions on chain have now exceeded Visa, MasterCard. So really significant use case right there that is in fact revolutionizing the financial industries. A lot of the big revolution at this point has happened in infrastructure layers like that are kind of more at the plumbing layer. A lot of the blockchains, in terms of their suitability for game applications that are very high speed, microtransactions, small transactions, really we're only 2 or 3 years into even there being blockchains that support that, because before then we had a lot of gas fees and you had to be dealing with very large transactions and finality was slow. Could be, you know, you could have quit the game by the time you get the item in your wallet. So there's a lot of things that were certainly holding up the technology because it wasn't performant and it wasn't fast and it wasn't inexpensive to use, all of which has become more or less a solved problem in the last couple of years, even the last year in particular. So, you know, those aspects open up more use cases just as stablecoins became a really, really dominant use case within the financial ecosystem. But Kyler, what have you discovered about some of the chains you've worked with along the way? Like, and, you know, feel free to throw a punch or pull a punch if appropriate, but like we are here to help game developers. So, you know, help game developers maybe think about how they select a chain. Yeah, I have so many questions about it, actually. Let's just start with your journey, and then maybe I'd love to shift the conversation to, rather than like pimp a particular chain or throw any chain under the bus, like let's help game developers think through what is important when they do select a chain. But start with your journey. Like,
I love that.
You started with Solana, you tried some other things, you're going somewhere else. Like,
yeah.
What's the journey looked like?
And we have never gotten a Web3 grant to build anywhere. We have literally only gone there for technical reasons and maybe expanded for limitations. So our whole journey started on Solana. We absolutely fast iteration, a lot of support through our co-founder, met a tremendous amount of wonderful companies and brands. And at the 2021, 2022 vibe, Solana was just like coming into their wave, and there were a lot of fun NFT projects and a lot of great people to collaborate with. The ideas were heavy and it was working great. So we created a game, launched on Solana Saga, playable. You can wager your pogs. It works. It's phenomenal experience. And we could have absolutely just stayed there on Solana. But once we realized, and then, the number of collectors, though, the serious NFT collectors at that time were on Ethereum. It was every day a new major influencer or a new major NFT collector would move to Solana, and it'd be big news. And so creating a native collection for Ethereum was a natural thing, and the mint was so popular it broke our site. There was issues with Phantom and MetaMask, and we had some problems, and we didn't know how to handle that. We should just pawn the mint, but anyways, we're on Ethereum. And then there was some opportunities where we could token gate merchandise on our shop. So we used Ethereum and Manifold, and through those technologies, because at that time Ethereum had far more utilities created for them than Solana did. So the ability for us to token gate a Shopify product was there with Ethereum, and so people could use their NFT, claim their thing, and the database would show that NFT had claimed its thing on Shopify, and so that was awesome. And then Bitcoin ordinals came along, and so we launched an ordinal. We were the first brand to ever launch an ordinal, 160,000 or 126,000, and that was a community-led project. And it is probably one of our highest floor collections to date, and it's very historic and absolutely something we're proud of. And then we had to figure out where is the best place for us to build our game. And we had a relationship with a company called Theta Labs, and Theta Network had all of these different entertainment moguls from Sony and Samsung and CAA, and these relationships in Hollywood, which we wanted to create this, not just POG TV, but this gaming access element. And they had some really interesting tech around IP protection and token gated video, and we wanted to take advantage of that. The limitations of that were that the infrastructure for gaming wasn't created. We had a not so great outcome with one of the executives at the company, a lot of mistrust in how they handled our coin, but still every single other person we absolutely love, and they blossomed our company and our community tremendously. And so every single time we've gone to a new chain, there has been this explosion of community, and there are people who are native to their chain, they're passionate about their chain, and they want to be able to access those collectibles of their childhood on their chain. And so for a brand like POG, just like we're in Barbie and we're in Disney and we're in NHL and everywhere else, we can be on all of these different chains. We get a request every single day to come to a new chain. And as we're expanding this game and launching it into production, unfortunately, our public testnet or our public network POG chain on Theta Labs, on Theta Network, was not viable. You still can't see your NFTs on their Explorer. There isn't an Explorer. There's a number of different things that would have been just as hard to build as the game if we were trying to use that chain. And so we started to search again for a chain to launch the full version. We even bridged to Base, being that like Coinbase is the first onboard ramp for Web3 for users who've never collected, and the ability to transition directly from a Coinbase wallet to collecting POGs is still available. Buy the coin. We've left our coin. We've bridged it to every chain we've been on, but the high gas fees for Base even wouldn't allow us to run the game the way that we've created it. And so we had to keep looking. We met with a number of different blockchains, from B3 to Scale to Abstract and others. And the one we landed on was Ape Chain. And ApeChain has something unique. They have a 30 to 45-year-old core demographic that is the majority of people on that chain, and they are true collectors. They've gone through the $500,000 NFT floor all the way down to the $8,000 NFT floor, and those that are still there believe in collectability. They believe in what is being created on ApeChain. And so with Beamable and POG and a partnership with Arbitrum and ApeChain, we're super excited about launching this game to real collectors. But what Beamable and POG have created is something that new users will never see the Web3 side. The core Web3 users can transition, they can transfer their assets that they win in games to their MetaMask and sell them on Magic Eden. But for those that just want to play the game and collect, maybe they'll collect their Starbucks POG and they'll be able to get their discounted Starbucks. We have these golden slammers where you'll flip a golden slammer inside of the game and you'll be able to redeem it for a 24 karat gold slammer from your favorite different brands. And there's all this utility hidden inside of this game. And then as we transition to maybe metaverses, we have the other side building on ApeChain and the opportunity for us to hide collectibles there in the gaming experiences. Not to mention we have a number of other games. That doesn't mean that our opportunity to support Solana in our arcade isn't there, because it's already wired up through Beamable. There's a number of different things that we can do long term, but that is kind of the perfect home for us to launch this game. There's not as many wallets or liquidity as on Solana, but that's okay, because the people that are there, we believe, are full collectors. They're nostalgic. They have experienced the POG craze already. And so it's easy to capture all of those folks with the nostalgic feel, and then we can expand from there.
All right. So we got an important collection question from the audience. Speaking of collectability, I think I know the answer. Naxu says, "Is that a skateboard collection?" I think we know the answer is it's snowboards, right?
No, these are skateboards. So
they are. Okay.
Yeah. So actually,
they were snowboards because we were talking about you being a pro snowboarder.
That's true. Okay. So luckily, through a lot of my experiences in LA and through athletics, I was able to meet some really great people. And Nigel Houston, probably one of the greatest skaters of all time, he's our executive marketing director. He's a partner and has helped create a program where we have a bunch of autographed skateboards from his new collections, his new skateboard company, including like this one is signed from his first Olympics, 2021, I think. Just really, really cool. And you can win these actually in the POG arcade and in the POG hub. You'll win these POGs and you'll burn them and redeem these autographed skateboards. But POG is so universal that a lot of folks, even Napoleon Dynamite has launched his own. John Heater has launched his own collection on POGs, and you can play them in the arcade. So yes, that is a skateboard collection. We have, 5 times this many in the warehouse, ready for anybody who is active in the game.
That's amazing. Well, that also proves that I don't know anything about snowboards either for me to but I'm a skier, so
I'm back to skiing. It's easier. Yeah, the difference between snowboarding, after a day of snowboarding, all you can think about is a hot tub and bed. After skiing, I'm ready to go dancing. I'm ready for a steak dinner. I'm ready to go have some fun, and I've had a great time on the slope. So I feel you.
All right. Well, we got back to collecting from ApeChain, and you thought that that's where there's this concentration of like the true collectors, as you put it. So that's right for your game, but like, let's talk to the Web3 game developers out there for a moment. What are some of the criteria that everybody should consider in partnering with a particular chain? And by the way, I think it probably varies according to your particular case, right? Like you've actually identified one, which is where does the liquidity on that network come from, and who are the people who are right there on that chain with wallets, with assets where they can trade. And for you, it was a demographic crossover with people that were really into collecting, which makes a lot of sense for everything that you see in the room behind you and POGs and everything you're trying to do with the game. What are some of those other criteria that you look at, both composition of the people using the network, the technicals of the network, the people that you work with at the network, grant funding, how important is that today? Like all that stuff.
It really exactly comes down to the game you're building. I think speed of transactions and cost of transactions is probably the number one barrier for most game developers. Are you building a game that's going to have a high volume of transactions on chain? If so, you're going to find something that is massively scalable, like a Solana or hyper EVM or even Scale, it sounds like, and especially Ape Chain for us. But there's a number of other chains out there that may be able to offer that. And for us, we've just picked the partners like Solana and Ape Chain, and those have been great for us. But if you're trying to hold a high floor price and have exclusivity on your games, like maybe you're dropping characters that are going to be enhanced and you want them to hold as much value as possible across all of those supplies, maybe in Ethereum, or even though you're willing to have your players pay higher gas fees, that the value of those may stay over longer periods. Whereas like when you see a Solana, the transactions are so easy and so quick that a lot of these folks will quote unquote flip their assets for small profits on these chains because there is no demand for a higher gas fee. And then same thing if like you're building a Bitcoin game, like we did at old days, those are the highest transaction fees, but they also are the highest stable value where you're actually, it feels like playing with digital gold. So you have to figure out where on the value chain are your assets going to be held, and how are your players going to value those? Which tier do you want? And for a lot of us who are trying to create multiplayer games or a high number of user games, you're probably going to pick a hyper fast, massively scalable chain like a Solana or an Ape Chain, Abstract, Arbitrum, so forth.
All right. This is the most fun conversation ever in terms of the non sequiturs that keep coming up in collection. Jay Surfer wants to know, do you have Nyjah shoe collection?
I do have a Nyjah shoe collection in the garage. I was wondering if I was wearing them now. For a long time, they were the only shoe that I skated in, but Nyjah has the perfect literally the perfect technique. He uses the exact part of his toe when he ollies and when he kick flips. He's been doing it since he was tiny, and so he had to have the perfect techniques as he grew up. And I don't have that technique, and so the part of the shoe that is like built for ollieing and for kick flips is not where I need it to be. So I would be leaving blood stains on my skateboard after one or two sessions, and you probably find my DNA laying across LA streets because I was into it, man. And I actually have a massive callus on the top of my left toe from ollieing without any leather or shoe there, because I just could not. I didn't want to skate anything but not. Dude, you got to realize, like when we were skating back in 1998, 2005, around there when I was a kid, growing up in high school, Nyjah was like 10 years old, 7 to 10, 12 years old, and he was the biggest phenomenon we'd ever seen. Like Bastian Salabanzi with Flip came out later, but Nyjah was winning like the Tampa Am, the Tampa Pro at the age, like doing kickflip back lips that we'd never seen before. So I could go crazy on why Nyjah is like the GOAT and why I'm so lucky. I feel lucky to have partnered with him. But yeah, dude, probably have like 10 to 12 different pairs of Nyjah shoes, and I've skated through another like 5 to 10. So great question, bro.
Do you have a favorite object in that room there behind you, or am I asking you to choose your favorite child?
Dude, that is so hard. I probably would have to boil it down to like 2 or 3 favorite objects. Like on the POG side, I love this like Donkey Kong thing and the Marvel stuff. On my personal, like this Nyjah skateboard, his last deck he ever did with Element, he signed it for me. And then he's obviously, I got the signed US skateboard, but then these are probably realistically my very favorite items. These are the exact size of the 90s slammers, exactly, but they're gold and they're collector and they're for the adults, and even the kids love them because they're like so OD'd, you hit it just barely and the whole stack flips. But this is like the brands that we meet with are so interested in the collectability. What's so unique about POG is that we can brush off your old IP, put it on a slammer or on a set of POGs, and it has a whole revitalized meaning to 30 to 45-year-olds and comes right back into collectability. So those are like this dish of gold slammers is probably my favorite thing in here.
All right, there we go. All right, back to the world of chains. So, because I think this is a really helpful part for Web3 game developers. You talked about the technicals, liquidity, access to the right kind of user. Much earlier, you touched upon another element that seems critical for who you partner with as well, which is just the people on that team and like how aware are they of the part of the market that you're going after?
That is the most critical piece. We've made it a rule to only work with people who remember the POG brand. And it's not because we're gating or because we want to be ageist in any way. It's because if you didn't experience POGs in the 90s, it's very likely you don't understand how much it means to us. This was the core collectible for a whole generation. And if you ask somebody who's 30 to 45, if they collected POGs, you're a 90% chance that yes, they collect POGs. It happens in spaces every single day. It happens everywhere I go. Anytime I talk to people, I love POGs. I had POGs. I'm going to my mom's house to get them out of the, and it is so critical to work with people who understand your mission, who understand your brand, who understand your vision, and believe in that exact same thing. Because with Ali and Trapper and you, John, you guys really understood it. And Ali played these and collected these as a kid, just the way Matt Sword did over at Solana. It is everything to pick people to work with who know what you're doing, believe in what you're doing, and value what you're doing. Because every single time that we've worked with somebody who doesn't know POGs, one, they don't give us the respect as a brand that it deserves. They have to go read up on it. They call them pigs or pugs or paws or whatever. Like if you typo pogs or say it wrong, like instantly we know like you didn't grow up with this. This isn't your core thing. But at any brand, Sony Music, all these great places, like now those are the people who are starting to become the decision makers and the founders of these great companies. And they are so excited about POGs. And obviously there's people who are older than 45 who remember the brand, who understand the craze, who knew it, and they are like, yes, dude, that totally makes sense. Even still, if you had POGs in your hand, if you had these little tubes, if you had collectibles, then it was your childhood for a number of years. And that passion of collecting, that early element of like, this was our currency. This was made directly for us as kids and nobody else understands it. But on the playground, it could get you a bike. The right slammer could get you a Game Boy, right? Like it was crazy what we were trading for these things. And so just in our experience, picking the right people who know what you're doing and believe in what you're doing has been absolutely critical. And that starts at your founder level, that starts at your partnership level, and it expands into your customer level. On Solana, we're small fish in a big pond, and we know that there's a core demographic of people who love POGs, but there's also the younger demographic who absolutely could give a shit about POGs, don't know what the hell it is, are confused whenever they see us. And that just, it wasn't where we needed to be at that time. We'll come back to that essentially, but Ape Chain, it is almost like every person we meet is like, I had POGs, I love POGs. And though it's a smaller chain and an early new chain, it just, the feeling and that vibe is so much different. We got it when we first came into the space on Solana. faded a little bit because of kind of the demographic or the way that NFTs had gone on Solana, and we expanded. But I really think we found the perfect home with Ape Chain, and now we can always expand and bring more people into the arcade through different chains. But as a core user base, core customer base for this new game, this new collectibles experience, they absolutely already have the user behavior because they remember and experienced our brand previously.
So for us with the game developer side of what we're doing at Beamable, we support like 10 different chains. It's totally agnostic, and we just find that every developer chooses a chain that's right for them, and we just want to enable them all. We often are aware of what kinds of projects a particular team is looking for. One comment on that is like, in addition to the 10 that we support, we've interacted, I think, with most of them at this point at some level. And it's always astonishing to me how so many chains want to target games as a target application because they think of it as just, hey, this is a way to drive transaction volume. And a lot of the ways chains look at their value creation is just drive transactions. That's how we're going to actually increase our own value. Despite going after games, it's kind of shocking sometimes how little they actually understand about games. Sometimes it's like finance bro idea of like what a game should be is one side. Our experience with Solana has been great through the whole experience. We are launching our DPIN on Solana. For us, of course, the DPIN side is a capability for game developers. It isn't itself a game. And we were attracted almost in a similar way that you were for why you're going to Ape Chain for collectibles. There's a massive concentration of DPIN projects on Solana now. So Helium is there, for example, probably the best known of them at all. They're like this Wi-Fi network where you can earn Helium token by running a Wi-Fi router. So, many other really, really great projects in Solana as well for that. So we went there because that's where a lot of the people who care about DPIN also are. And in addition to that, a lot of tech ecosystem present. So a lot of things we could tap into very readily that would apply to our own DPIN launch. And for those who aren't familiar with it, we're taking the game server technology that has helped Kyler build the game at POG Digital. We are taking that game server and basically creating a community-owned network around it. So it's kind of like Airbnb, but for game servers. So we won't own those game servers. The community will own and operate those game servers and be able to earn rewards from operating them. What is your own experience of like that game expertise? Like clearly it's pretty good at both Solana and Ape Chain, frankly. Like they have people that have worked in game tech or game industry for a long time, but you've probably talked to a lot of these other guys, right? Like they want games for the financial metrics they think it'll bring.
It's crazy, man. New chains will launch and they're like, oh, we want this game as an anchor game. And then they find out that like we didn't take a massive investment from VCs and that we don't have, $100 million to throw at their chain development. And they're like, oh yeah, it's probably not a good fit. It is so disingenuous to see so many of these chains just like try and, bring that just so that they can launch their chain, right? And it hurts. It's recently with you guys, we got into a conversation with a chain that we were interested in, like Beamable and POG. We're like, hey, maybe this is the place where we should launch it. And they had hit us up for months, like, hey, we want you to be the anchor. And then we told them, like, look, dude, like I have bootstrapped this from my Rivian IPO equity funds that I cashed out right away and put it all in here. And so like, and then they're not ready to grow with you. They're not ready to expand. But Solana saw POGs and Matt Sorg and gave us everything we could have asked for, front row seating at all of these events, make sure that we had the introductions and got us to where we are essentially. And so as much as like we're launching our game on Ape Chain, our founding POGs are on Solana. Like you still can stake, you'll be able to stake those for the POG coin that you can then bridge to any of the 5 chains. So it has been wonderful, and some conversations horrible, right? And it does come down to, again, like, do people understand your value? Do they understand your vision? Do they understand what you're bringing to the table? Solana and ApeChain really did, and some of the other chains, Base really did. Some of these other chains just wanted us because they saw 200 million collectors globally. They saw, like, through you guys, you have like 3.5 million accounts ready to play our game when it launches. And people see these numbers and they just start frothing, and they're like, oh my God, I want it. But then they find out, oh, there's some heavy lifting that we might have to do, or we might have to provide some support, or we might have to get our hands dirty. And it's like, oh, it's not just as easy as like bringing your game and getting 3.5 million accounts. My mom, I'll go off on a tangent really quick. My mom used to read me this book, and it was like a hen and her baby were going to bake bread. And so they had to go like harvest the grain. They had to break it down. They had to make the flour. They had to roll the dough, and they had to bake it. And they had to do all of these things along the way. And every step of the process, they would ask, hey, do you want to help us? Hey, do you want to help us? Do you want to help us? And every single farm animal was like, no, it takes too much time. I'm doing my thing, blah, blah. And all of a sudden the bread is baked, and it smells so good, and it's out there. And every single farm animal that was like asked if they would help and said no is standing in line with their hands out ready to get some bread. And that mother hen was just like, pretty much, fuck you. Like, there is no way you're getting to taste this delicious like concoction that and that's how I feel about POG in so many ways. I really think what we're about to release is something that scales far beyond Web3, has the best opportunity to bring these Web2 folks. I'm going to Philippine Blockchain Week. I was invited by the founder of Bybit to come out and launch this coin into the Philippines, because the Philippines were our third biggest market, and there's such demand for POG there that like YGG will likely be ready to play this game as it comes out. And I promise you, if we become one of the top games in the world for Web3, it will be all because of our partnerships with you and with Solana and ApeChain and all of the folks who have helped us along the way. And those people that come with their hands out, hey, come to our chain. Hey, can we create collectibles with you? Can we do all these things? I remember every single DM, every single conversation, every person who faded us after the initial call, or who like got to the finish line on creating collectibles and they're like, just ghosted us or whatever. It doesn't happen a lot, but I remember every single person that had, and they've already started to come back asking for attention, asking for partnership. So that long way of being said, like, go where you're wanted, grow where you're watered, and it's the old saying, like, only stay where you're valued. If people don't value what you're bringing to the table, there's no reason for you to fight. And in Solana, in Web3, we came in as a brand, and at that time they had just been rugged by dozens of brands prior, and so a lot of people had sour taste on their lips, but a lot of people loved POGs, and so it was like fighting headwinds along the way. And last thing I would say, as a founder, the amount of information and my capacity and my understanding of the space and my love for it has grown so much. I can take 900 times more conflict, FUD. You want to throw negativity at me, and I'll use it as a stepping stone to get better and to make our project better. Whereas in the very beginning of Solana days, people would even make one small critical remark, and I just spent a year and a half trying to get this out, and I took offense to every little negativity, and I turned a lot of people off. And I think for founder, if you're coming into the space and you're looking for attention, don't come in beating your chest saying, I've got the brand, or I've got this, or this is my experience. People want to know, like, why are you here? How are you going to contribute to this space? What do you have in store for them? And they don't want to know what your credentials are. And I led with, like, look, our team's amazing. Look, our IP's amazing. Trust us, jump on, like, we're the biggest and the baddest. And it was not the right way to go about it. I would do so many things differently to optimize and cultivate those relationships. But I think we're in a place where, knowing what I know now, it's happening how I want it to. But if you're watching this and I offended you, I apologize.
We've got Huckleberry NFT with the comment that he's a little nostalgic, remembering playing POG during his childhood. I think you got some of your customers right here
That's why we do it, John. You know, like when we announced that Ape partnership, the comments have been flooding in nonstop, and we're lucky that they have such a big platform that they can showcase POGs. And you know, what we're bringing with you guys is going to blow them away and gives them all an opportunity to mix their IPs and be discovered. It really is such a great system. But you know, this is the exact reason we're doing it.
Right. In a moment, we're going to be giving that secret word out, by the way. So if you've been through this, waiting for this, it's coming up really soon. One more fun question. JR Surfer wants to know Tony Hawk. I don't know if you're asking if you've skated with him or if you have one of his skates.
Have skate with Tony Hawk. My first boards were Birdhouse. I had like a Willie Santos skateboard, which was a Birdhouse. Tony Hawk's the GOAT. Tony, I've never met him. Have literally no affiliation with him. I would love to make POGs with him. Hit up Activision, John, for me. Let him know. Yeah, let's make that happen.
Here's very kind and nice.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, if you can introduce me, I would love to meet him.
I don't know. Tony Hawk, Surfer, if you know him, let us know.
Tony Hawk Slammers would go hard.
So you touched on something about earlier, but it was actually a discovery for Beamable as well, which is, as we've been growing this massive community for our own DPIN launch, we're launching a token in a few months through the foundation to support this whole community-owned infrastructure project, the DPIN project we're doing. We started accumulating these millions of people in the community, and then we started scratching our head and thinking, well, is there something else we can do with this? I mean, they're after an airdrop, and they're helping us kind of amplify signal, and we're super grateful for everyone participating in that. Could they amplify the signal for some of our customers? Because that's a virtuous cycle. If we can kind of harness that community, not only to promote ourselves, but to promote the games on top of Beamable, then guess what? That's good for our business. That's good for all of our customers, and we all kind of grow together. So we did a few experiments recently where we channeled that fire hose of a community towards some of the games being built on us. And you were one of those, Kyler. Can you just share that experience? Like, what happened?
Dude, I'm getting chills, honestly, because you guys helped in so many ways that I'll never really fully be able to tell the story. We've gone through some dark days where we've run out of money and where, you know, the game wasn't ready, and Beamable stepped in and donated their time. And then you raised this massive round. And I was able to like talk with some of your investors beforehand and share my experience, which was such an honor, because this really has changed our business and thus changed my life and my career in a sense. And when you were at GDC, and just at the very beginning of kind of like maybe the very first iteration of this questing for companies or for your you know customers, we were lucky to be that. And within 4 days of that GDC announcement and first quest, we had 135,000 people collect a POG inside of our arcade. And it was not easy. You had to create an account, you had to register, you had to do a bunch of different things to jump through the hoops. Then all of a sudden we went from like, you know, 100 people playing our beta to 135 people ready and asking for more. Where do I buy more POGs? Where do I get more content? How do I get more involved? And that was so early on. Our account went from like 55,000 to 350,000 followers.
And these people weren't just checking a box like, okay, I signed up for
the
game.
No, they still engage. No, these are people who are like, yeah, literally real customers who are trying to be a part of POGs. And that was what, 2 months ago now, 3.5 million people. We haven't done it again because like as this game opens and as we open the floodgates, it's going to be crazy. We will be the I think, John, you and I will be responsible for the single biggest onboarding into Ape Chain that has ever happened. We will be the reason. I mean, don't quote me on that, but dude.
Well, I can't wait to get someone from Ape Chain on this stream, by the way. So if you're watching from Ape Chain, and we know who you are, we're going to find you. But if you're watching right now, ping me first in Telegram, you know where I am. We'll get you on the stream because we'd love to have you on to just talk about what you're doing and other projects like Kyler's.
We'll have the chief strategy officer for Ape Chain join in here with you one of these days.
All right, we're running down on the clock here. I've got to give it. I think we have to give the word out at this point, right, Oscar? Because you only have 2 minutes to enter it into the system. Yep, it's collect. COLLECT. You might have been able to even guess that word coming into it. So if you guessed it before we put it up, more power to you. We should give you 10x or something. But go get your BNB points and play POG, by the way. And next time we do a big community activation for one of the games on the platform, hope you'll check it out. The one thing you know from Beamable is everyone building on Beamable, they're like a real game. They're not just like some kind of NFT flip. Like they're building games with mechanics and cool content. Like no one chooses Beamable because you're going to just build like a smart contract and a web game. Like you're on us because you've got multiplayer and interesting things and a meta and asynchronous functionality and or matchmaking. I mean, it could be any number of those things. That's just part of what we do. But collect, COLLECT. It's along the bottom there. If English is not your first language, just look at those letters, copy it in, go claim your points. All right. We're at the top of the hour in the dwindling moments here, Kyler. What would you like to share? We've got people in the Beamable community. We've got Web3 game developers here too. We've got some of our other customers hanging out, trying to learn what you're working on.
I would say jump in. Like we have our own POG hub where we're giving away a Mutant Ape Yacht Club where we've got hundreds of thousands of dollars in coins, Ape Coin, POG coins available, NFTs from Solana, Ordinals, Ethereum NFTs, and so forth. We've put together a prize pool of about $250,000 available for people to just for free integrate and rip packs. But get ready for our game powered by Beamable. We couldn't be more proud of the partnership and, more honored by what you guys have put into this. Ollie will, be a namesake for my next child. And John, maybe you'll have to be the godfather. And Trapper Trapper's going to be the coolest uncle ever, the fishing uncle. So, I couldn't say more nice things about you, or I could go on forever, but I couldn't say enough nice things about you guys as partners and innovators. And it's so cool to see what you're doing on Solana. All of the success is absolutely deserved and more. So thank you for everything you've done for us, with us. And we are so excited for the next few years building with you.
Thank you so much. And Downey's comment here is he's waiting for Beamable POG merch. We're not really cool enough to be.
You're already on a POG, dude. We got you on a POG. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Hold on.
Spoke too soon.
He's like, let me go through my collection of POGs.
Well, all right. I'm just gonna make a mess because I love you all so much. Yes, if you look, here is your logo. Right, you probably can't see it. Shit, I'll have to send you one, John. But yeah, you've got your own POGs. You're on a POG. You're already there.
All right.
But we need some hoodies. We probably need a POG Beamable hoodie. We definitely need a POG Beamable hoodie.
Let's make that happen. I'm in.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of you who tuned in today. I hope all of you had opportunity to collect into the Beamable.network hub. If you haven't signed up for our hub, by the way, don't wait. Like, we've been doing this for the last week. We're doing giveaway codes. And this is a big part of what we want to do is just keep engaging our community, not just for like farm the airdrop, but like get a chance to try out new games, register for things, see cool things that no one else has known about yet. And the community out there has been amazing for this. Like, I've never seen a community activate the way the Beamable one has. So we're going to keep doing this. And it's not going to stop at TGE either. Like, it's not like, hey, we did TGE, we're done, cool community activations. No, now we realize that we've got this superpower that we're going to keep deploying. And this is going to go on well into the future because it's something that we can do for Kyler and companies like POG that I just haven't seen anyone else do. Like 100,000 signups for your game. Like anyone who's in game development knows, like that is not easy at all, short of like, I don't know, I hate to say it. Like the last time I saw that was when I was featured in like Apple's App Store to get games, like in their feature page. And features aren't even really a thing anymore. Like they messed that up. Like, so that doesn't work that great anymore. So I'm talking about like 10 years ago when they featured things. It was actually really good to have. So hope we can keep doing it. We will keep doing it. So, but again, thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Kyler. Oscar, thanks for keeping this shit together, even though, I don't know, I hope you've been just spamming StreamYard every minute with like, guys, camera control. Like, you're a camera control platform that streams. Like, it's one of like two things you just need to get right.
You just lost a customer. I'm going back to Google. It's all right.
Now we're gonna stick with we haven't abandoned you yet, StreamYard. We like you, but yeah, just fix it. We'll be even happier. All right, next time it's gonna be fixed. That's my sense. I have an intuition about it. So,
oh, you just muted.
You just muted yourself, John. On the outro.
I don't know. I did not touch the mute button. I did not touch it. But
It was
thanks
Oscar.
everybody. Thanks for being here. Until next time, everybody.
Thanks, guys.